Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the City Stage and Friends podcast. I'm Victor Johansson, along with Josiah Showstrom and Francisco Corrales in the engineering room. Today, we are sitting down with two of our friends from City Stage offices, Catalyst Photography, Jesse and Jen.
Where are we?
Whoa.
Good to sit down with you guys. Thanks so much for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
You guys are the two longest standing office members in City Stage Studios.
That's what we hear, yeah.
You were
so
here.
we wanted to present you with a free car today.
Wow, thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Is that what that Tesla is for?
It's Josiah's car, actually.
You can have my 2005 Honda Element.
I think I'll pass.
You guys were here at the very beginning, and I wanted to just ask you a couple questions on what that process was like, converting the space into the studio it is now, and then also how this idea kind of came about as you guys talk with Josiah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. What do you want to know first? Exactly
that.
3 years of work.
So you want to give a little background on like how we kind of got into the collective work environment to begin with?
Yeah.
Start there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we worked out of our house, well, my house, not our house, my house for, several years. I don't remember how many.
At least 2 full-time.
Yeah, and then I think we were approached to start this little collective of people renting an office space, and at the time we were just like, I mean, it sounds cool, sure.
But
and then,
why spend money on
yeah,
something?
I was like, well, this is free at my house.
Unnecessary expense.
And then my kids kept being louder, and I was like, maybe let's talk about it.
So to clarify, this was an office space further downtown Rockford, just a loft that became available. It was a cool part of town, and there were a few of us creative professionals just wanting to get out of the house and work in an office space, but it couldn't necessarily justify like an office, any one of us individually.
Yeah, like the cost of that is, as people know, not cheap these days, and to convince yourself to like go do that, I think the initial part that made me worried but also excited was having other people around. Because at that point I was like, well, we're already working on our own. Like, what do we need that for? But I think all of us being in similar industries, not the same, but similar, I was like, okay, well, maybe this could be good for us. You know, that it might be worth the trouble. So we agreed to a lesser term than
they signed I think 2-year agreement, and we said we will do 6 months.
Just in case we hate all of this.
We'll leave the bag if it goes south.
Yeah. So that was our first jump into it, and we were down at that office space for almost a year, I think.
Almost 2 years.
Yeah.
It was close to 2.
That's how fun it was. It just kind of flew right by.
I think we moved like right at when our lease ended, right?
It was just
within like a
darn
couple
close.
months of it.
Yeah.
Pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah.
The official lease. So clearly
so what happens?
we
We had this loft, and then this space, this building became available. We had the idea of moving it here, expanding the room for more creative professionals, and having a studio component to it. That was kind of really that was the initial thought, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Josiah had talked about it for a while, having this idea of a studio space specifically, like film studio, soundstage space. And I mean, I guess after we all shared a co-working space together, the offices probably came second to that idea. Like, you always thought Rockford could use the studios, the soundstage. And then we realized like how many people are like us as far as creatives who work totally alone most of the time, and how nice it is.
One or two person businesses.
Even to just like go up front and grab a cup of coffee, and you've got other people in the same industry as you that you can just like bounce things off of or complain about whatever.
Yeah.
You know, just
So when Josiah proposed this idea to you, did you lay it out completely as to what you wanted the final thing to be, or was it just like in stages?
Of course, I had a 1, 3, 5 year plan, and financing worked out.
I probably asked if he had all of that.
What were your first thoughts though, as he kind of started to explain to you his vision for Rockford?
I love a wild idea. So I am like, let's go look at it. And then we walked through, and I'm sure most people were like, he's insane. This space
and to clarify, that was sarcasm. I did not lay out this
not at all. Not at all. Well, and we kind of walked in with the vague thought of what you've been kind of talking about, and looking at this massive empty building that used to be an HVAC facility that was in pretty rough, like 80s, wood.
Drop ceiling, green carpet everywhere.
Yeah, rough shape.
I think 80s was even a generous.
That's probably yeah.
Wood paneling everywhere.
It felt. I generally can walk into a space and be like, yeah, I think so, and I was like, yeah,
this is going to take some work.
We could probably do something.
Yeah, so it kind of moved forward. You got the building, and I think at that point, like we said, the lease was kind of coming up at the place we were renting from, so it kind of turned into one of these, well, it's happening, right? So it was scary, exciting, but that was right at the onset of COVID. And I think we were kind of in a weird spot with our business. We're photographers, and we were kind of transitioning into the idea of doing commercial work, and so first of all, everything canceled. So that helped that transition. We had no weddings to worry about. We basically just made that jump to say, like, well, let's see how this goes. We ran out of work. Everything kind of stopped, slowed down right at the point where we needed to start looking at the move to the building, and so we're just like, let's just try this. Let's see what happens.
I'm a firm believer, as I said before, in the fact that things happen for a reason.
Yeah,
nothing's just an accident, and the fact that you two paired up on this project is kind of insane, because your dad was in construction. Mm-hmm. Your dad was in construction as well, correct?
Yeah.
So you guys both had grown up doing this type of work. So kind of taking on this project during COVID was not easy, but it was, you guys had the background in it. That's kind of an amazing aspect to me.
This construction background, and we're able to put those skills to work.
For
4 months, was it? Like basically all our other work dried up, and
at least
I wasn't
4 months full time.
Sit around and do nothing. So we.
Yeah, and I think, talking about everything working out as it should, like the fact that we even got approached to be in that office with you guys, because we weren't working closely with any of you at that time. Like,
no, I had met you guys randomly.
Yeah, one time at a lunch.
Which happened to be my birthday.
Yes, I remember that. Surprise.
Yeah.
So just even getting connected to where we had been in that office for the last year to become close enough that you would be like, hey, are you guys would you be willing to help? Do you think this idea is crazy? And there was a few other people that helped during that initial time, but it was pretty much the three of us doing
a ton
pretty
of
much everything for the first. And
then
phase
one of the renovations,
other hands coming in and out. Like my mom painted the kitchen for us, and Kiko put ceiling tiles in and did a lot of other things here.
Your dad laid some tile for us.
Yeah. So it was definitely a many hands situation, but the consistency of being bought in pretty early was really just like the three of us trying to see what we could make happen on our own. So,
and at the very worst, we needed an office space to work out of eventually.
Well, yeah, because then we got used to it.
Because we were like, well, we don't have that now, and and especially if the building didn't get done, we still don't have that. So that was a nice little.
So now we're here for the long haul, and you're stuck with us forever.
Yeah,
so.
No, but I joined here when the office area was already constructed, so you were working on main stage photography, all that, and I still walk in here, and it just will pop into my head like, oh man, this space only a year and a half ago was nothing. And now it's just this beautiful place. By the way, this is the person responsible for...
This is the Jen you've all heard about.
Exactly, for the... what do we call it? The...
Interior designer.
Thank you. Interior designer of City Stage Studios. And now it's just this complete space. So what's it?
I was trying to come up with
an office mom?
Executive vibe
office
officer.
Mom, yeah.
Chief executive office mom.
Yeah, I like that.
But what's it like looking back on where you guys started with this place, and now you walk in and it's just this beautiful, awesome place for...
I think I forget how bad it was most of the time.
We were scrolling on my phone 2 days ago. I just
recently fell into like a deep dive of our shared album of all of the pictures of this place, and it's
shocking.
I think I just mentally blocked how bad it was.
Yeah.
You just don't remember. And
we walked in day one, we were knocking down cinder block walls and just going at it. We were like, let's see what happens.
Really, again, talking about our plans, we were like, we could cut a hole. Wouldn't it be so nice to have a door here? And then they just rented the saw
here's a door.
Cut the hole. And then we said, we should probably find out how much the door is going to cost.
Sorry, hindsight. Sorry, Ben.
However,
Ben is my business partner
beautiful
on this.
And then, but I mean, some stuff was so resourceful, like the window in the conference room was left here.
Yeah.
And we were like,
in like the back warehouse.
I think you said, one of the boys was like, what if we put this in this wall? And I was like, I'm not so sure if we should do that. And then they cut the hole in the wall and it fit perfectly. And now I can't imagine.
Because we cut the hole in the wall.
No, but I mean, having it there
almost
added
like
so
we
much.
knew what we were doing.
I can't imagine not having that window now.
Yeah.
You know? So there's a lot of stuff that
happened
happened like that I think, we're not professional. I'm not an interior designer by any means, but I think just all of our gifts made it work out.
Yeah.
Very
Complementary.
Complementary, yeah.
Great way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long have you guys been in photography?
The first thing I ever got, well, I didn't even get paid, but I shot Jesse's wedding, was one of the first real jobs I did.
So Jesse's a cheapskate, is that where you're in?
Yeah.
They bought the
I
film.
was that person with I have a friend with a okay camera.
Okay camera.
It's basically the people that you hate.
So that was
A beautiful 3 megapixel digital camera.
It was great. All of the black and white photos were on film.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a very underqualified digital camera, and we did the other stuff. That was 17 years ago.
Wow.
And I'm not that old, so I don't know how that's possible. But and my mom was always really into like hobby photography, as when I was growing up, and so I kind of got into it from her. And then I started taking a couple of classes at Rock Valley, graphic design and photography stuff. And then I kind of got into it with friends asking me to take pictures and do some other things, mostly family photos. And then 2012, we started the business. So we've been working together for almost 12 years, full-time 5.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of inherited the interest from me, like doing the like editing at their house on some projects I was doing and stuff like that. And then you can share.
Well, yeah. I mean, like
well,
you short of some classes at Rock Valley, most of us, the two of us, are pretty much self-taught in most everything we've been doing, which is always exciting. But I started because she was doing a couple family sessions, working through some editing on Photoshop, and she
hate editing.
Still hates it. Still hates
Does
Photoshop.
not bring me joy.
But at the time, I was like, well, I can learn this. I grew up doing church things, like making graphics that were terrible for backgrounds of weird lyrics and whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I can learn this stuff. And so I sat down one day and started clicking around. She showed me the basics of what she knew, and then I went from there and started learning on my own.
And now you're an internationally sought master of the Photoshop.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Exactly. I know everything about Photoshop. No, I don't.
He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Got some chops.
Was it kind of I just, from my experience, I remember the kind of the couple weeks that it took me to decide to take a leap of faith and quit what I was currently doing and go out on my own and do video production as a full-time thing. I was so stressed out. I remember going to work, and for 2 weeks straight, I would have a nosebleed once or twice a day because I was just that stressed out, just not knowing what's beyond, and not knowing the unknown, and not having an example of somebody that I knew who kind of did that already. I had my friend John, who's kind of doing it. He's maybe a couple years ahead of me, but he was still in the dark as well. So how was that process for you guys, just going out on your own? I mean, I think it was a pretty slow progression rather than just like saying, boom, I'm in. But just balancing work and what you wanted to do, how's that whole process and experience?
I honestly, I partially have blocked out the first several years of it, but I used to, I had maybe 3 full-time jobs at some point into this transition into that. And I used to do construction with my dad, like we said, and I used to work at a vet clinic for 7 years. I thought that would maybe be a path down the road.
7 years. Huh?
Yeah, 7 years. So I could do surgery on anybody, really. Just any.
That's a great asset to have. So
I have,
if you ever
keep
need
that in
have
mind.
a couple spots I've been curious
I've
about.
Stitched a couple of things on my but so you never know, and stuff started coming up where we were just kind of doing that hobby. You were making a little side cash, taking family sessions, and slowly it just became more and more because you have eventually, well, my friend does this, my friend does that. So we'd take up more and more time doing that. But I think eventually it got to the point where we were working 60, 80 hours a week sometimes, and with no, filter. Obviously, you work from home and you just keep going, cranking hours. And to the point where it was just felt insane. Like what? Yeah. And there's always that, like you said, that panic of like, everyone's like, well, when should I take the step? Well, you'll know when to, no.
Well, I think
you never know. It's no.
I think when we started, did not really, it wasn't in my head like a feasible full-time job. I just didn't understand. Again, we never second shot under anybody. We self-taught ourselves. Like, we figured out how to start our business. We really didn't do, like, especially people who shot weddings, like the traditional path of, like, most people, you get kind of into it and then you start shooting under a photographer. And then, like, once you've done enough of that, you start to build your own business. Like, that's kind of the normal approach. Or you go to school, like art school or something like that, photography school. And so since we didn't do that, we kind of started just slowly, we're like, well, we'll just see what happens. And then as it progressed over the years, because we really didn't put much effort into it, I would say, until after probably the third year in, where we had kind of done, stuff kind of started to come our way, whatever. And then we both decided to switch to part-time jobs eventually. And then he kind of accidentally went full-time he was working with his dad at the time, and we were so busy that he's like, well, I could just, work less with my dad and we'll just pay him more to get things done. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. And then all of a sudden he was full-time, and I was like, well, should I quit my job? And then I think that was 5 years in June that we've been full-time. So we just decided to go for it. And part of that is like, we built up the bank account to a number that I was comfortable with, of like, so that we can pay ourselves a salary, because we're an S corporation. So we have to have payroll, which is a fun business thing. So we have to have actual paychecks where we file W-2s at the end of the year because of how we're set up. So for us, that means it's really important to make sure that we always have the money to run the payroll, because obviously everybody has, like, you pay yourselves, but like if you have a month where you're short, it's a little bit different, like, so anyway, we can skip a paycheck if we had to, but that wasn't something I was really interested in doing. No. And so of course, who would, but
I don't need money.
So we kind of got to this point where we were like, okay, well, if the goal is to go full time, how much money do we need in the bank to do that? And what does that look like? Like, what's the expenses? How many weddings do we need to book? All of that stuff. And then once we moved to full time, we quickly realized that we would like to do more corporate commercial work so that we could make some money during the week, mostly a day job, instead of, because it did feel like when we were only working on like weekends and evenings, it felt more like it was always still a hobby.
Yeah.
When that was the hours. So
it made sense to do it at the time too. That's when you have open outside the normal job.
Yeah.
So
if you have a 9 to 5 on top of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that transition helped a lot. Jen was always good with our money and stuff like that. We got a loan from her mom.
Was always, like, I'm not anymore.
She blows her like crazy. No, but like we got a loan from her mom initially. We didn't.
Oh yeah. To start the business.
Yeah, to start the business, and it was like $10,000 to just get like a computer, a couple cameras, and
thanks, Mom.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where we short of that was never an option to put it on a credit card or things like that. We were just like trying to pay stuff off as we go. We paid her off a year early from what we had kind of signed a contract with, and from there it's just trying to keep on top of that, to know that we can bring in so much and we can spend beyond that, like in life.
I wish I knew you guys when I started my business, because I did the exact opposite of all that.
I think in hindsight, we did do a good job of preparing ourselves to do it. However, like, there is a risk regardless. Like, one thing that was helpful to us is that we were in the wedding business at the time, and so we could kind of project how much money we were going to be bringing in. Whereas now that we're mostly like all commercial photography, that doesn't happen. Like, the jobs come
you
as
don't
they
book
come.
It 2 years out or whatever.
Yeah. And so when we did decide to quit our jobs, we kind of knew, like, well, we'll at least be able to afford this for the next year, because we knew what money was coming. So that is a little unique, I would say, as far as like the comfort factor in going full time. Still not comfortable, still made, his wife uncomfortable. Everyone around us was like, are we sure you guys are busy enough for that? And so it's always going to be a risk, but that's any business any venture you take is risky, and that You just have to decide if the pros and cons outweigh one another. And for us, it was we knew we had a year to give it a shot. Like we knew we would have the money for a year. And then at the end of the day, like it's not failure if it doesn't work out. It's just, it's time to pivot and do something else. And I think so many people think like, oh, I failed. But that it just depends what your definition of failure is. Like I think taking the risk is more worth it than if it doesn't work out. Like you can go find a job.
Yeah.
You can go find a job. It doesn't matter. Like I shouldn't say it doesn't matter. It does matter. But it doesn't mean like at least you know you tried. Because I think we spent so many years of saying like, oh well, it would be nice eventually to do that. And that's like, well, you're not getting any younger. And if you don't try, you're just never going to, you'll always regret, like, I wish I had given it a shot.
Yeah, you'll never know if it would have worked out.
Well, I'm in the mindset of always, like, I'd rather it fail and I know, at that point, then you can just move on. Like, instead of that whole constant way of like, it could be really good. It could be, just go try it and fail. And at that point, you could be like, well, I did try. So, that's fine.
I remember being in my late teen years and I had always asked people, why do you do what you do? And, people would answer, oh, just for money. I don't like my job. And I just thought, man, to spend all your time at a place that you don't want to be at, doing something you don't want to do. And so many people had those missed opportunities that they didn't take that little leap of faith and just said, let's just try it. Why not? Yeah. And I remember when I had my big decision, I just thought, you know what? I do not want to be those people. If it doesn't work out, I'm just going to say, it didn't work out. I failed, whatever. We'll try again. Go back to a regular job. Why not? I 100%. But what I wanted to ask you guys, what made you fall in love with photography, starting in weddings and then moving into commercial space? Because it is a big leap of faith. And, like you said, you had that mentality of like, let's just try it. But what was the driving force behind, why you guys chose photography?
I was always just into like the arts and creative aspect of this. I was drawn to, I like capturing things for people that now that we're helping them like sell their business or build their brand or whatever. I would say I have leaned, I still love photography, but I have leaned way more into like just the business aspect of it that I've really started to enjoy, like, and the client relationships and the communication and like all the boring stuff is actually what I really enjoy. And it just is a kind of a natural progression, I think, over time. Like, obviously I still have opinions and like that creative piece of me is still there, but I have a very like, what's the word I want to use? Analytical brain. Like I'm thinking more type A, like I'm the more organized and all of that stuff. And I just like seeing things from like the beginning to the end of a project. Yeah. You're definitely more of like the true creative, I would say, out of the two of us.
I'm scatterbrained enough to just try anything, really, is what it is. No, I honestly never really thought I would do anything like this. I've been into music for most of my life. I'm a musician. I play, go on tour,
still
things like that.
You haven't given up on your dream like most of us here.
I will eventually. Don't worry. Yeah, so the only thing I remember, like at an early age, I used to look at just photo books. Like, I don't know why. It used to be a thing that I just liked scanning through photos. And it was, that's like the earliest thing I can remember. And then we started working together a little bit. And then I was like, well, might as well learn this thing. And I think since then it just kind of like blossomed into the enjoyment of it. Like, your composition and learning the process of it all and lighting and all these things that, you don't think about when you start doing photography. A lot of times it's like, this is a hobby. I can just do it for fun, make a little money, do whatever. But it's, I think, slowly turned into an enjoyment of learning the process, the craft of it, and all that stuff. It's just challenging.
And it's never quite the same. Like, the technology is always changing. Even like from shoot to shoot, like you can try new stuff, you can experiment like with light. And for a long time, we didn't do any lighting. Like, we were natural light photographers for many years.
What's available on
pretty much, whatever there is, especially like weddings and things like that. We eventually got into some flash stuff with weddings, but we spent many years like not even exploring that side of the industry. And now, I think that's like there's always something else to learn. There's always a way to improve on what like on your craft. Like, you never quite have it all figured out, which is true of most jobs, I would say. Most things. But I think for I just like that challenge. I like that it's never quite the same. Even you could do the same shoot 2 days in a row and you could do it slightly differently. You know, I like that. I like that you it's open to that creative piece always having a factor. There's not any like set, I don't know. I mean, even like when you're gaffing something like that, you can light it 6 different ways, like however you feel like doing something that day. It's nice.
Which feels overwhelming sometimes, like for me, but it is nice. I mean, you can walk into a thing and again, like you said, shoot it 5 different ways for different clients, and it's all different, looks different, feels different, gives a different brand, different, vibe to whatever you're doing. So
evokes a different emotion.
Yeah, and that's what I love about video. I mean, I remember being a kid, and it's just like I would see one image. For example, there's one scene in the Band of Brothers TV show, and I just remember. It's a single shot of this guy standing amidst just chaos in this little town that's happening, bombs dropping, and I remember the snow just slowly falling as the shot kind of wraps around him. And I remember thinking, my gosh, that gives me such a feeling that I can't describe. That's all that I ever wanted to do was just like make people feel that certain way. So it's like you don't. Our industry, we do a lot of commercial stuff, right?
Yeah.
But even at that point, you are still causing your audience to feel something, to see something in a different way. And that, to me, I love that about video and the photos too. Like you can look at a lot of the stuff you guys do for some really recognizable brands. And I've looked at a brand that I actually didn't know you guys were associated with at first, and I thought, that looks like Jesse and Jen's work. And it's just like high-end,
lo
crisp
and behold.
feeling. Exactly. And you guys...
We get that a lot, oddly enough.
So
it feels weird, but it kind of makes me happy.
I just never thought we had... Like, I think our stuff's fairly timeless because it's easy with anything to, like, follow the trends of what... Yeah. Like, I think when you watch, like, a lot of TV shows now, you see a lot of, like, the desaturated, like, leaning heavy into, like, blues and stuff. And you see some of that with... Photo is like what's trendy and what people are doing, and we just always did what we liked, and I've always thought it was a little bit more timeless to a point. But it's interesting because
specifically though they're talking about Dutch angles and color pop. Is that what you call it?
Yeah,
The whole
specifically
one color.
One color in every photo.
That's their signature style. Very timeless.
Timeless. But so it's I never thought our stuff would be that recognizable because of that, and it's actually come into the point of like it's more recognizable because of it, and it's shifted over the years. Our style has definitely changed a little. But there's always been enough consistency that when people started bringing it up, I was like, oh, people know what to expect.
Yeah,
from
there's
us
something.
now.
I mean, again, there's something to be learned about like following trends and understanding why they're effective and why people are leaning into them. But at the same time, knowing you also have a style, and as long as you're not falling behind in doing color pops and everything, whatever, all that stuff, and falling into a trap of stereotypical kind of stuff.
Or not growing because you're doing just the status quo.
So I think that's always the push is finding your niche, but also being able to flex with it as the time moves, and say like, well, here's what I do, but now I can apply it this way or change this way.
Knowing the rules so you can know when to break them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just as you're talking about this, it makes me think about men's fashion. That's kind of one of my things. But Cary Grant, if you're familiar, I mean, who doesn't know Cary Grant?
Yeah.
Do you know Cary Grant?
He's so young.
He's a transplant. Victor, you did not grow up in America, so we'll catch you like that. But he's one of one of the most famous actors of all time, right? So known also for his style, and that was something I remember, reading an article that he was being interviewed about just how he was considered like this just stylish, rakish guy, but he's like, I never set out to be that. He had this kind of timeless approach. He never wore the super wide ties or the super narrow ties or the super wide lapels or the super bold. It's like everything was just within a range of what is expected. And
interesting.
Known today as one of the stylish staples of
iconic
men in America. So.
Yeah, that's how our photos are.
So but it made me think about that.
Cary Grant
you kind of you figured out a way to like create this timeless. Style, so you understand kind of the rules, so to speak, of what's aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, and consistency, because if you have clients returning to you, like having it feel consistent for them to where they know what to expect. Within, I mean, obviously each shoot's a little different, but for the most part, they know what they can expect from us when they call or email for a job.
That's so interesting because I feel like in our world, in video production, the broader the range of work, the better almost.
But just because from the perspective that people think that if you haven't shot this sort of type of thing, you can't shoot it.
And then
we could ask that a lot too.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking in a commercial sense, your local main clients will want this consistent look. But people out of town, producers or directors, they're gonna want to see a wide variety of work. So it's interesting the different sides. I mean, I know you guys get asked to do different stuff than what you're known for, but it's also just within your brand, your own clients, they've come to expect and
they expect certain things. But and I think every time we get asked to shoot a different type of industry, we are almost always asked for a portfolio of work that looks like that. And I'm like, sure. Yeah. We've done aerospace. And, but even then, I mean,
there's in our sleep.
Yeah, no problem. And then you're like, do we have anything that could work?
Yeah.
So you are always adapting, but I think just using the same tools helps us be consistent. So just trying to create a product that if they see our website, they decide to spend the money with us, that what they end up with, while maybe not the same genre or industry, would still feel like they got what they requested. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Sure.
But just trying to figure out how to continuously deliver for people has been interesting.
And the interesting thing is, I can think of two bigger brands within Rockford, the Rockford area, that you guys do, and while they kind of have hints of the same stuff that you guys do, they're both at the same time different in a sense. So you've done a good job of that, separating the brands. But my question was, in commercial photography, you guys, you call yourself Catalyst Photography and Design, right?
Design and photography.
Design and photography. Excuse me.
It flows better.
So with that, you've done some branding stuff for businesses too. You've not just done photography. You've kind of helped them build this brand image. So I just had a question about your exactly.
So Catalyst did design the City Stage logo.
Yes.
And our branding. This is a simplified version of it, but
and as well as Kiko's brand, Francisco's.
Husky Leatherworks.
Actually, I like your logo quite a bit there.
Can we zoom in on this?
Yeah, who made
beautiful. No, but I think
look at that beautiful.
Yeah, sorry. The question then.
How do you guys approach? Approach different commercial projects that come in that don't necessarily ask for branding, but you kind of know they need it?
Yeah.
Just what's your approach to those clients?
That's a hard line because a lot of times people don't feel like they need it too, so you don't want to step on toes, and be like, your website is terrible.
Looks like it's straight out of the 90s.
But it's also trying to. We're terrible salespeople, honestly. Like we're better with relationship and talking to people, which I guess in theory is sales, whatever. But at the same time, it's just like trying to float that line of not being offensive, but being like, here's how we can upscale you. Here's how much, and people see price tags and see things and say like, I don't think that's worth the money. But at the same time, when you see people's brands that are not showcased well, it speaks to that brand. And I think explaining it that way is saying like, we're not branding you per se, unless you ask us to do that, we can do that. But to know that you need to start thinking about consistency in what you're putting out there. And I mean, that alone helps elevate the brand that you're working within. And so to explain that to somebody, there's so many different directions I want to go. No, but and that's another reason to say, again, working with same people over and over again tend to help with that too. So you have the same uplift in what you're putting out there. The things are consistent, but quality, there's just so many things about branding that you put something out there and what you put out there is what everybody immediately thinks of. And that's the harder part to say, what are you putting out there? And a lot of people don't think about that. And we can match styles, we can match, things, create a brand with people. But I think again, we try to look at what they've had out there and try to decide if either we need to match that style or what's going on, or if we need to have a discussion, say what we're going to give you is going to go like this. So to know where to elevate that, or to say use this here, but here cell phones are appropriate, or things. We've had a lot of those conversations with clients, or
just asking we like to ask questions after, what's doing well on social media, or what do you find is attracting, what are people responding to, what are your customers responding to, and then because like let's not waste our time. Like if I don't know, like let's just say you are a coffee shop and the photo, like a static photo of just one of your drinks does poorly, but then a picture with, you post something with somebody, a human element, and then that post goes way better for you. So just asking those questions of like, what's doing well? What have you noticed? Who are you trying to attract with what you're doing?
How are those stock photos panning
Yeah,
out?
how are the stock photos that you probably didn't pay for going for you? But I think that we need to, you have to kind of understand who you're working for and what their goals are. Because we do have some bigger clients now at this point, like that we've worked with for a long, as they've grown. So we've been watching them grow and we've been able to say like, oh, okay, well, we see this stuff going well, or we see them posting these things or in their marketing emails. Like I actually open all of their emails that they send out. Like I get on their mailing list and I open it and I look at like what they're using. And then we know
you put in more time.
It's just an awareness. Like if I see it in the inbox, like but I also am like neurotic about our inbox, and so like even our spam folders are empty.
Same. But I mean that speaks to you guys because you're really aware of just the little things too. You do your research. It's not just show up and figure out what you can do. Then
and we did that for a long time.
Shows.
But I think as we've gotten, now that this is full time and we're focused, I think we have the opportunity to like put in that effort. You can do more with your time when you give yourself the time.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit on like how you get clients in the commercial world? Just
luck.
Just pour the secret sauce out there, because it is different from like weddings where you snowballs. You show up, people like you, and then their friends book you.
I will say in that regard, it has not been so different for us. I think a lot of times we've gotten to the points where, sometimes work dips and then it gets crazy and whatever, where we're like, we should probably put some pamphlets together and go door knocking a little bit. But we never get to that point because I think a lot of times it has been through word of mouth. Or again, we've been lucky enough to where the bigger brands that we work with we've kind of started at almost ground level with a lot of them.
Yeah, as they were much smaller, we happened to be the people
and then
that worked
at
with
that
them.
point the relationships.
So if you want to become bigger as a business, get connected with Catalyst now because they have a track record of building incredible businesses.
Not our bank account,
guaranteed.
I mean branding. But I think beyond that though, it's been relationship with the people in the industry. Like again, I think that's the beauty of working here, meeting people here, and especially with us, there's very few photographers in town. Don't do that. That brand themselves as just commercial photographers, and usually people have a little toe in everything, And I think
we did for many.
We did a lot of times, and I think that gets confusing. And I think at an early stage, it's hard to understand that fully, to say, like, I should commit to one thing, because you can't be a master of all trades. You can learn things and bring them with you and help in a lot of things you do. But if you can pour into one specific area, I think people start realizing, like, oh, that's what they do.
Yeah.
And we've gotten a lot of work from wedding photographers that have pushed people our way to know, like, oh, these guys do businesses. Like, these guys do headshots. These guys do that. And I think we've kind of put our footprint in the area a little bit more, knowing that this is what we hug into.
Yeah,
and I
defining
think
what we offer has helped a lot. And we are not good, like you said, at sales stuff. And so one of the things that has worked for us is like different marketing agencies, having a contact there, or people who are building websites, or just kind of aligning ourselves with people in the industry.
Well, with the market,
kind of codependent. Industries in a way,
and that we reciprocate, right? Like if we know someone, like if we meet someone who's like, oh, I really need a website, then like if they're the person that we would recommend. And so just kind of building that database isn't probably the word, but like network of
Rolodex.
People. Rolodex. I have a digital Rolodex. And then also I think what we share, we no longer, like probably a year and a half, not that we're good at social media. If you look at our social media, it's lacking. But when we first decided we're going to do commercial, we stopped sharing anything else. Even though we were still shooting weddings and other things, like we changed our message. Like everything forward facing from us we're commercial photographers. And then eventually we took all of, like, the website, everything now leads with just that. So we're trying, leading with the stuff that we want to attract instead of just calling ourselves photographers. And we pretty much we take design projects, but that's just part of the name at this point. Like
we're choosy about it. Like if there's certain things, back in the day, I used to be like, yeah, we can do all that. Everything, I'll do it. And I think, again, that's kind of early mentality in a lot of businesses. You just got to make money and stay alive. And I think
there's nothing wrong with that early on either, right?
And I think there's something to be learned in that. But at the same time, I think again, keying in on what you're good at and pushing off what you're not, it gives you more time to focus on those things and realize I do really good at this, and I'm gonna now get that kind of work because I do good at this, and I want to do good at this.
Yeah, I think the first thing we really realized that we were good at was headshot photography, which sounds silly because it should be pretty simple to do a good job at.
It just seems so boring. I was when we got into this, I was like, I do not want to do headshots.
But
I was like, but they're kind of easy money.
But no, and then we started getting good at it, and then I think we've talked about
the art in it, right?
Lighting. Like again, we started without learning lighting, and in my head, I'm just like, I don't want to do lighting. But like again, learning the process and learning to do good lighting is actually kind of exciting. You can light it 15 different ways, and it's like, oh, that's why I love that photo. But that's why I love this photo. Like it's just playing with it.
Yeah, I love doing interviews. For whatever reason, I love lighting interviews, sitting down for an hour or whatever it is with a person and just asking questions. And I just thought, is this something I want to do all the time? But it's kind of like your headshot photography. But there's something to it where each person's face, is different with a certain millimeter length lens, and then you can also experiment with the lighting in so many different environments and scenarios. So that's the same thing. That's my equivalent to your headshots.
Yeah, and that's I think that was the hard part for me. Is like you find that thing and you're like, and then you start getting good at it and you're like, okay, well, this isn't that bad. And then I think again, like we still spread our net pretty wide when it comes to commercial work. It's not like just only food photography or only, but I think we've kind of realized we like lifestyle. Or like tourism.
Working with people still to some extent. Not every shoot is that way, but for the most part, that's what we prefer.
Which has come really handy coming from weddings. We've gotten to, and families, know how to work with people that aren't models sometimes. And a lot of times we work with non-models in this industry.
We almost never have real models, right?
So
it's
like
all just
knowing how to
employees and staff and things like that.
In the moment, try to draw a smile that's real. In the moment, try to get a real moment that may be set up, and I think those are the things.
How do you do that? Because I know in video that can be very difficult.
I just immediately flick them off. No, I'm just kidding. Interesting. Honestly, it makes everyone laugh.
I think I don't want to say we over explain, but like we really talk through what we're going for, talk to them off camera, like making the people, like if they're not used to being in front of the camera. I hate being in front of I hate that this is a video podcast sort. Like I don't want anything. Yeah, perfect. Now we're great.
Blur.
So as someone who doesn't like being in front of the camera, like if you have this guy who's 60 years old, he's grumpy, he's worked at this manufacturing company for the last 45 years, he is not going to be natural with us when we're trying to take his picture. And so I think just because typically we walk in and everything's like rushed. You're trying to get set, you're trying to do all these things, you're worried about your job. And I think it's easy to forget that we actually need the person. Like they're not going to be able to perform if no one's taken like 5 minutes to make them feel comfortable.
Or if we're stressed.
Yeah. And so I think it is more important to slow down enough, like to make them feel a little bit comfortable. And that was kind of our approach to weddings, is like we wanted to feel like we're friends with you, and then also we have to take your photo. And so there's obviously some of that's more professional with this, but even headshots, it's like we don't have to be clicking the camera the 2 seconds after you walk in. Do you need to go fix your hair 10 times? That's fine. Like people are not used to. Most of them aren't in front of the camera.
We've known each other since high school. We've been close friends since then, and I think that helps too with as far as like how people approach us. We approach people like we know what we should be doing on shoots most of the time. We'll have our little spats here and there, but it's always quiet.
I thought he was going to say it's always her fault.
No, but it's always like, just be professional in front of it. But at the same time, you need to have fun on set. Like if the people that you attract to anywhere, it's usually people that have the, personalities and fun. And even if you don't have that naturally, you have to display that a little bit. You have to act, and some shoots are terrible.
At least on projects where you don't have like, I don't know. I think like some of the video stuff I've been on with you guys, there's so many people that most of them don't even interact with the talent, if you will.
Yep.
But when it's like a 2-man show, everything we go to, like we have to keep like there's
no place to hide.
Yeah, there's
you're like the parents of the set. Like if you're in a bad mood, everyone's in a bad mood.
You're like you have to. There's if the client's on set, like that's a whole other piece. Like because then the client needs to be not babysat, but
a little. I mean, like you do. You need to feel important.
Yeah.
You need to be.
This is a podcast for creative people, not business people. So
stay off of your business people.
They need to be babysat. But then on top of that, like making sure whoever has to be in front of the camera is comfortable.
Yeah.
And we tether
Do you think
everything
it's a little
so
easier
they can see
that
it?
you only have to get them looking like comfortable for a split second?
Yes.
Versus
Yeah, for sure.
No,
I
it
think,
for sure is.
I think video is harder, especially if they have to say anything or anything like that.
Especially non-actors, or models.
Yeah.
Like it's people that are.
But you're talking about like, I don't know, we're taking pictures of someone at a restaurant and they like have to cut their food and it's like they've never held a knife in their life. Or they're like, this is the coffee, they're like, just take just the things that people do.
Just be natural.
Yeah. Stop. What are you doing?
Have you never held a cup before?
The amount of people that don't know how to cross their arms is
Oh my gosh.
insane. Like I'm just like people
Cross
are
your
just
arms
like
right now.
this. Yeah, see,
That's
that's
fine.
not that hard.
That's fine.
But some people are just like
But he
this.
has massive biceps
I'm just like,
too. That's
are
not
you a genie?
Or they're like,
But to know when you.
I want to know who
do
did that.
this.
I want to know who did that.
But when you see that stuff, to know to overcorrecting can make people feel like closed off inward, feel like over.
so instead we just move on from that.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, arms
Yeah.
down.
And you're like, click. That was great. Next,
delete.
But yeah. But
it's so funny. All the stories. My friend John and I were just reminiscing this morning at a meeting. Some of the very early stuff that we did. And it's just you experience so much and you're put into so many weird environments and scenarios that you just walk away with so many weird, funny stories.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to sit down with John and do a podcast of just our experiences. But what were some of your just absolutely crazy, odd experiences in the beginning of starting your business?
This is going to be hard.
we honestly haven't had a lot of crazy things. We I think more than just wedding stuff.
Weddings
are on their
That's
own
what I was going to
beast.
say. There's
we had
gotta be stories
a
there.
drunk groomsman just run away at a wedding.
Just away.
Ran, he was gone.
He ran away. People were like, "Where'd Jeff go?" I don't remember
Jeff
his
is
name.
Gone.
Jeff is gone. He blocks away
Who
by
knows?
now. We've had people get in fights at weddings and the bridal party, fist fights. It's weird stuff.
Oh my god!
But I think that's the weirdest stuff. Is it was all the unfiltered, non-professional settings as much. It was more people are people with alcohol.
Yeah, I mean we've had. I think we probably had more just people that never got over not wanting to do it. It's probably more that
sure.
They were not pleased that work that day required them to have their photos done.
Yeah.
Or people who are just very, very, very uncomfortable in front of the camera. And it is
you literally have to play
we just
psychiatrist.
recently did a headshot for someone and it was the worst day she's had in a very long time that she just had to come. And I'm like, I have to take your picture.
It's just my job.
I don't know what, and it wasn't like she chose it. The place that she was working sent her to have a headshot done, and so it was literally
she had a terrible morning the whole way there.
We have to do
it's
this.
Just I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so I think it's more that kind of a lot of mini therapy moments for people of talking them in, not into it, but bringing them down and saying it's okay. You can see the pictures if that makes you feel better.
Which not all the time.
Yeah.
I think that's the really interesting thing about our industry, because as I look back on the experiences that I've been through and the people I've met, the things I've had to do, we are in an industry in the creative realm where I think it creates people, if you allow it to, it creates really good people, just well-rounded people. I think. I mean, I believe any business owner really does because of the things you put yourself through. But you're right. You do have to be a therapist sometimes, you know. Sometimes you're on a set where people aren't agreeing. I mean, we had one, I'm not going to say when, but I was a part of one where I was just like, I had to come up to 3 different people and say like, hey, I am sorry. I don't know what's going on here. We're trying our best.
Was I a part of this one?
You were a part of this one.
I know it is.
And you were the problem.
This is why I don't remember it.
Just as I'm never the problem.
He's blocked it out.
Real prick there. He's always going on about the lights.
Yeah. It's not my vision. Is what I heard. No, but you have to be a therapist. Yeah. You have to be someone who tells people what to do very firmly sometimes if you're working with crews. So it's just I think it creates well-rounded people. I think that would be the best way to put it.
Yeah, you got to know how to work with people. Yeah. And if you don't, you're going to find out real quick you need to learn.
Well, I think we have this weird thing of we're all business owners, but then we're also all like you also have to be everything, right? Like when you freelance like this, you're responsible for the account. You're the accountant. You're the CEO. You're the talent. You're the, like there's so many things that you are that you eventually have to figure out ways to, even though not all of those things are going to be your gifts or your skill set, like naturally, you have to figure out. So either you have to figure out a way to pay someone else to do those things for you, or you have to be able to become enough of that role that you can be successful.
Yeah.
I think that's something that a lot of creative people starting out, like, oh yeah, it'd be great to just be a photographer and, click a button for a living sort of thing and, express my art is you really do have to be an entrepreneur at the same time.
Yeah.
Like the idea.
Yeah. Unless you're
people
even if your goal is to like hang art shows, like be a photographer who's like an artist,
sure, not
providing a service. Cause like we're a service provider. We're not really, yes, we're creatives, we're artists, but we're providing a service to people. Even if you want to become the type of photographer who's hanging gallery shows, there's still a huge entrepreneur. You have to be able to sell that stuff to the places to hang it. And you have to be able to sell it to people to make the living, right? Yeah. Like it's not as simple as we think.
You're into branding also because you're building a whole backstory behind this image, and selling the story behind it rather than the image. So it seems like it's so simple, but you
got to find your gen.
Yeah,
like
they don't know that.
No, but we've been joking about it. No. But like we've been talking about this a lot recently. Is saying we offset each other really well. We, like she said, I tend to be more in the true artist, which is not true. I'm just like
here's a great just our different roles in what we do. But we have a photo shoot tomorrow, and he literally looked at me and said, where are we going?
No,
what is it?
Well, she started talking to me about the shoot.
I was like, okay, so we have to leave at 3 o'clock for the shoot tomorrow. He's like, what shoot?
You trust my memory way too much at this point. You know this. And she was like, we have to pack lights. We do this. I was like, where are we going? We have a shoot?
It's a prime example.
Yeah. So, I wake up in the morning and she tells me what to do.
Jesse needs a handler.
Yeah, basically. Which a lot of artists do. Like I mean, we're like... the world is everywhere and we're like, we can do all this stuff. And people need to rein us in. And that's Chen. And I think, a lot of the stuff she's taken over and fallen into, it's all stuff I can do. I used to do our QuickBooks. I used to do these things. And like, I think a lot of the stuff we realized that I was stepping over stuff that she was better at than I am, or at least has more patience to do than I do. And vice versa. And learning where we kind of belong in the business together has helped, and not all people have, a partner to lean on.
A lot of freelancers don't have a business partner. A lot of people are doing it solo, and I honestly, that seems really hard. Like I can't really imagine doing it totally by yourself.
Vast majority of people.
It is
because you just don't get those like staff photographer National Geographic jobs.
Anymore.
Or like New York Post or something like that. It pretty much doesn't exist. I mean, I guess it exists.
They're all hiring freelancers to do it.
Yeah, right. It's all freelancers. So you got to have that entrepreneurial side as well.
Yeah, and figuring out again, you're not ever going to be the best at every piece of your business. Like there are going to be things that are a struggle for you. So whether you have to time block, like, okay, I know once a month I have to take care of like the accounting side, or I need to go make sure like what invoices haven't been paid, or I need to, I don't know, schedule myself an hour a day to do emails because otherwise I'll avoid them.
What things are worth spending your time on?
What are the holes that you have? Like what are you naturally getting done without even second guessing it? And then where are you dropping the ball? Like where?
Yeah, being aware of that is huge, and I think it's almost like the same idea of the jumping off point of going full time. It's like you could probably do this, but at the same time, you need to prioritize and say, like, I can't afford maybe to do this as a 2-person army, but like I really need to do these things. This is what I feel called to do. I'm really good at these things, but where I'm lacking is here. And a lot of times you can find people that, scary as it is, just like finding a place to rent, is worth the payment sometimes to say, like, I'm going to pay you a little bit to do this stuff. Do you mind just taking over like a couple hours of this that I struggle with? Then, I mean, to me, that's generally worth the trouble.
Yeah.
I mean,
or finding somewhere like here, where if you could rent like a hot desk somewhere or get a desk at a place where when I come here, these are the things I need to do. And you just tell somebody else there, like, hey, when I'm here, this is the type of stuff I should be working on. And if I'm not, can you hold me accountable to that? Or a friend that can text you where you're not paying them, but maybe it's John for you. You say like, hey, John, on Tuesdays, I need to be doing this. And can you just check in with me? And vice versa, I could do the same for you. Like, what do you need from me? But like an accountability partner of sorts to just like make sure you're getting your, can I swear on this? Your stuff done?
Yeah.
I almost can. Your things. We all know I have the worst mouth. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Haven't sworn yet.
Your
We're great.
free speech is protected on the City Stage and Friends podcast.
Kiko,
Get
can
ready.
you bleep? I'm going to
Get
just
ready.
go on a tirade.
No, but you bring up a really good point about just City Stage Studios as a whole.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys expected when you first started out.
I don't think we know what to expect.
not any of this.
Yeah, right. But I think what it's developed into is not just a beautiful space, not just offices, not just a place where people can do photography and shoot video. Mm-hmm. I think it's become a community of people that come in, that work together on a bunch of different projects. I mean, if we were to count, I bet you'd have an entire web of, business transactions going back and forth right now. If we were to count what everyone's handing off to each other back and forth, whoever's working over this, there. So I think that's something, going from working out of your home and being kind of in this island state, you guys had each other, but a lot of creatives just have themselves and maybe a couple friends that they talk to once a week or whatever. But having a place here where you're able to bounce back ideas, you're able to work together on projects, it is invaluable.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this several times. The Rockford community for years, I mean, it's definitely gotten better, but for years was just very interstellar, like very... That's a real word. We've talked about this before. I've looked it up.
Say it again. Interstellar?
Interstellar.
Interstellar?
I'm just look it up. No, but basically, it's no, but there's no like working with each other, and especially in the photographer mindset, and I think that was a big risk in our head when we branched out and stopped working from home, is saying like, well, I don't know how this is going to work. And then realizing that there is a community, even if it's not all photographers. And I think, again, what we've said here, this place has been a very, in my head, a healing place for a lot of the community in photography in Rockford, because we have a lot more photographers coming in here, using the spaces, meeting people, learning like, oh, hey, guess what? I'm not available. I'm going to pass this off to you. There's a lot more shared work happening, and even beyond the photographer side of things, we have this little community of people that are really like cheering each other on, and to know that we're successful because of each other, or we have jobs that overlap, and like, hey, this person would be perfect for this job. And then it's a lot of shared workload. Like you said, there'd be a web of showing like jobs passing over each other throughout this whole place.
Just a quick example. Last weekend, I was shooting a kind of a very low budget project. I mean, it really had no project. Yeah. I came in here.
I had no project.
What's that?
Had no budget.
No budget.
Had no budget. Did I say project? It really had no budget.
Yeah.
But I came in here, picked up a couple things, and Colin, who's a DP here, has an office. He was just saying what I needed, asking what I needed, and I told him I just need a couple batteries. We're short on this, and he's just like, here, use this, use that. Do you want my do you want another piece of gear? That I was just like, no, thank you, but I can't rent it. And he's like, no, bro, we're all a team here.
I literally just did that to us today too.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's a freeing thing. Like you don't get that actively.
Yeah.
And I think having that little community has just been like so uplifting, and knowing, again, we end up getting more work that way because of friendships and knowing, instead of like living in your own little space and bubble and saying like, leave me be, this is my business, and then getting mad when other people get your work. And that's what that was Rockford for us for a long time.
Especially when you guys started.
Yeah.
I think too, it's hard. I mean, we have it, I don't want to say we have it easy because we worked hard to build this space, but now that it's full of people, I think it's easy to be communal and do what we're doing. But for a lot of people that are working from home still, or aren't in a place where they can spend the money to be out, or this type of thing doesn't exist where they are, like if we have someone listening not in our area, or just at the end of the day, like we run out of space here. Like we only have so much physical space for people to be coming into our community. But you can build this without having a physical space, like doing meetups with people, or starting even like we have a group chat for here where if somebody needed, like I think of that, even all the people who rent the photo studio. Well, there's a group chat, and if somebody has a question or needs something, like just ask, or you need somebody to fill in on a project or whatever. And I think we make it an island sometimes. Like we think like we're the only one, like this is our thing. We're the only ones that can solve the problem, or we have to take every job that is emailed to us. And instead, I think just really focusing on building community with people and it doesn't have to be every photographer in your city, but why not a bunch of different types of creatives, or where, why not, maybe you don't want to, maybe you can't afford to share the work and you're in a season where you have to take everything, but why not meet a videographer? We talked about this before.
We have a whole podcast on
it just comes out because of
the videographers of Rockford.
It's a wedding industry thing. It's a wedding industry thing. It's very hard. I know.
Ready for the cursing to come out.
If you zoomed in on my face as I said it, you probably could see my brain going, no.
Don't let it out.
Anyway, production people, gaffers, grips, whatever
you're called.
Or like, I don't know, just people who build websites, like any of that kind of stuff. Just meeting people that maybe don't do exactly what you do, but that understand the freelance life.
Yeah, creative people in the freelance world having to be entrepreneurs.
Whether you have a
similar struggles.
Whether you have a physical space to do that, or you just create it digitally. Like, it's 2023. You can find a way to communicate with people if that's something that is valuable to you.
Yeah, and I just, from my experience working with some, I don't want to be rude, but just I've had experiences with people that are very kind of standoffish, and these are my clients. And sometimes it'll be, marketing agencies. Sometimes it'll just be, people in video production, photography, things like that. And there is just this combative kind of attitude, like don't cross over here because that's my territory. And the thing that it's beautiful here that everybody works together, but it's also that we're building a community of people. That's the goal with City Stage, as a side goal, I think, is build a community of people that work together. And, at the same time, we're able to hopefully bring in people outside of Rockford, too, and be able to become a part of this community, and people in Milwaukee, Chicago, because it's very close. Guys, I wanted to ask one last question before we wrap, and that's just a personal one on, the classic saying.
Extremely personal. So
super personal.
Great.
What's the classic saying of, don't go into business with your best friend, or is that what it is?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
you've heard the saying, but my question is, you guys have been longtime friends, and how has that affected, how has the business affected your relationship throughout these years, negative or positive?
I think it's probably done both over the years. I think for the most part, it's been good for us. I think we spent many years, like he said earlier, working too many hours, because it is hard to shut off the business piece when we see each other all the time, like in our normal, like outside of the business life. Like we go to the same church. His wife is one of my best friends. The person he's in a band with is all my other best friend. Like there's a lot of overlap. And so I think what helped the most was just creating boundaries for the business. Like when we, and part of that was like moving into a physical space outside of his house helped a ton, because we leave at whatever time, 5 o'clock, 3 o'clock, if there's life happening, like whatever time we walk away, we try for the most part to be done with work. So if if my emails come to my phone, so I'm still going to see it. But for the most part, we're not going to discuss it. I don't answer emails after we leave the office. Just kind of trying to, if we're together on Sunday night, I'm like, hey, don't forget we have that shoot in the morning. That's just me knowing my business partner, right? Like you're gonna not remember that we have a photo shoot tomorrow. But I think for the most part, what's helped us is boundaries of like, we're not doing things outside of work hours that are work related anymore. And that took building a business is hard. And so sometimes you do just have to answer, and it isn't really a 9 to 5. Like, do we work on the weekend sometimes? Yes. Is it on my mind and I bring it up sometimes? Yes. It's never perfect. But just trying to be better about boundaries.
Yeah.
Because when we're not at work, it's the same thing as like, I don't know, your spouse bringing their work home with them. It's frustrating. I think you're not like.
The other lie to that, I think a lot of people will get.
Lie?
Well, no, not to what you're saying. To the whole
Stop lying.
Don't get, start a business with your best friend thing or any of that stuff. A lot of people will kid themselves into thinking, well, we will leave work at work and friendship is separate. And I feel like as much as, like you said, like we have these boundaries to say, as much as we can, we leave these here. But to also know that the overlap and stress of a business and running things does affect friendships. It does affect any relationship you're in, whether or not you just met the person or you're best friends with the person that you started business with. And knowing that if you move forward into starting something with somebody, it will affect that. And you have to have boundaries personally to know, like, when this gets haywire, we're going to talk. Or like to have something like, not right now, but we're going to discuss this kind of a thing is very important, like any relationship, any friendship, anything. And I think to put that precedence over the business is always key and helpful, because I've seen a lot of friendships fall out like heavy with trying to work together or doing like business together. And when money's involved, that can get really, really nasty a lot of times. And to know that ahead of time, if you're looking at somebody, whether it's with your spouse, a friend, or anybody else, to know that we're not going to hold back. Cards are on the table. We're going to talk about everything. When we're frustrated, we talk about it early before it becomes stupid and we hate each other.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that stuff you learn over time. We've been friends longer than have had this business. So I think we had a lot of that stuff just there already. But when we're starting a business together, there's a lot more weird stuff that comes up than normal friendship. And I think being able to talk about that stuff without any filters, to know when it comes up, we need to talk about it. We're not going to hold back. And I think a lot of that stuff, running a business together like that, is very important. Like whether...
And I think our culture tells us like what we do for a living is like the most important thing about us. Like that's kind of what, when you meet somebody, like one of the first things you ask them is, what do they do? And I think elevating the friendship over the business is helpful. Like us staying friends is more important than us staying in business. Yeah. So if the business gets to the point of it's a stressor for us, then we need to just walk away from that. And again, we talked about you can find another job. But I think for a lot of us, and part of freelancing, like it kind of consumes who you are, is like what you do. And I think there's more to us than that. And so a lot of us, it's easy. It would be easy to put the business above our friendship or his marriage or whatever that might be. And we talked about this before, but like you preserving Sundays for your family, like just trying to find ways to balance what we're willing to give to the thing that we're building versus what we're willing to still keep for ourselves, whether that's like taking the time to go to the gym, because it's really easy to not take care of yourself when your business is all consuming. If it's the only thing about you that you're like giving energy to.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know I've tried to get a hold of Josiah on Sundays, and I've just recently I was talking to somebody else, and we were talking about you, and we're like, oh, we can't get a hold of Joe today. It's Sunday.
I'm off the
we'll
grid,
have to
man.
wait. Yeah, but the fact that you reserve that day, no business. It's just meant to be time for family and church. I really respect you for that.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely.
But it does come back to the whole idea of like leaving work at work and just being okay with if you happen to miss out on some business because you didn't respond to someone that day. Well, that's okay with me.
Yeah.
That's an acceptable loss.
But how
to be able to reserve that
how many
time.
years of being in business did it take you to do that? Because for us, it took
a while,
probably 8.
I'd say I've always been pretty good about Sundays, but like, I also, unless it's pretty important, I pretty much don't check it after I check out from the office now. And Saturdays are pretty, you can get a hold of me on a Saturday, but I check to see how urgent it is. And if it's not something
I'll just star that email and I'll get back to it later
or something, then I'll just wait till Monday.
Yeah.
It's important.
Well, guys, beautifully said.
Francisco has left the booth. He had an appointment, so half of this episode is actually I saw when he left that. It wasn't
fake groove this
too long. It was only a couple minutes ago.
Very, very great things said here. Really interesting to get a perspective into you guys and into your business, how you started. Thanks so much for sitting down with us. I love your work. I really do. I've told you that ever since I met you. I look forward to seeing more. You guys just had your last non-commercial shoot, or is that this weekend?
This Saturday.
It's this Saturday.
Our last wedding.
Well, congratulations on
if
that.
you'd like to throw me a
Booked like 2
retirement
years ago or
party, I would be open to that.
Okay, well, consider it.
It's like we all know you're planning the party, so
Just let us know to the date, and
we'll be there.
Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. We are going to be doing a lot more conversations like this where we sit down with creatives in all different fields, whether it's photographers, people in video production, and just in video production, it's a whole slew of different types of roles and jobs in marketing, business management, things like that. So we'd love to have more people here at the City Stage and Friends podcast to be able to hopefully provide a little bit of value and insight into different people's jobs, why they do what they do. And stay tuned for that. I think we can have some exciting guests planned in the near future. So in the meantime, definitely subscribe to our YouTube, our Instagram, and also Facebook at City Stage Studios, and as well as go ahead and if you need to book a photography session, it's
easy
getting
for
late.
you to say. This is really rolling
is
off
a
the
long
tongue
one.
here.
If you want to book a photography session or a video session, definitely go on www.city or a podcast. That's right.
You can be in this
we are
very
offering
space.
this. And in whatever
Beautiful.
format you would like it to be. It doesn't have to be just a plain old table. It could be chairs. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. We will catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.